I want us to become brothers again like we used to be, and for us to find ourselves and bond with each other. Can we agree to that?
Opinions vary.
Welcome to Three Brothers Filmcast. I'm Anders Bergstrom, and I'm here with my brothers.
It's Anton.
And Aaron.
And my last name is the same as my brother.
And this month, we're discussing the seventh entry in the Scream franchise, starring Neve Campbell and Courtney Cox. To start, a short announcement. We've launched the Three Brothers Film newsletter on Substack. It's a weekly roundup newsletter published each Friday, often focused around a topic or theme, with links to recent reviews, essays, and podcast episodes. And it's free. We hope you'll subscribe. Also, remember to leave us a 5-star rating and review, and share the podcast with your family and friends. We're an independently produced podcast, and every rating and review helps us to reach new listeners and grow the show. Thanks for listening, and now on with the show.
And here we go.
In a rare move for us, we're returning to discuss a series that we've already talked about on this podcast. Way back in episode 28, exactly 3 years ago, we discussed Scream 6 and the Scream series more generally. Now the series is back, but minus the creative team of Matt Bettolini-Olpin and Tyler Gillette, members of the film collective Radio Silence, as well as the leads of the two previous entries, Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega. Scheduling conflicts and political disagreements offered the studio this opportunity to bring back series creator and writer of the original film, as well as of Scream 2 and 4, Kevin Williamson. Scream 7 also brings back Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott, who sat out the last installment due to dissatisfaction with the fee offered by the studio. In many ways, Scream 7 is like another soft reboot of the series, after the confusingly titled 2022 Scream, aka Scream 5, which relegated Sidney and Gail Weathers, played by Courtney Cox, to the side for new characters. This new film introduces Sidney's daughter, Tatum Evans, played by Isabel May from the Yellowstone prequels, and other supporting characters, but returns the focus to Sidney, now living in the small town of Pine Grove, Indiana. She's married the local police chief, Mark Evans, played by Joel McHale, and opened a coffee shop, trying to put the Woodsboro murders and Ghostface behind her. But when two fans are killed in a fire at the original Mocker house from the first film, now a tourist attraction for Stab superfans, Ghostface's arrival in Pine Grove isn't far behind. Who's behind the return of the killer, and why is he or she targeting Sidney and her family? Scream 7 is more derivative in its reliance on the original cast and similar premises to the older films than the last couple, though it's not exactly a legacy sequel or requel of the kind we've often discussed on this podcast. It certainly plays off the current 90s nostalgia among Gen Z kids in form and content. That said, as much as I enjoy these films, this one feels a little limp and perfunctory at times, even as it has its own thrills and suspense. It certainly feels more like an R-rated Scooby-Doo episode than the last couple of films in the series. It's not that I think it's so much worse than the last few, but the New York Set 6 film at least had a frisson that this one lacks. Think of the image of a shotgun-wielding Ghostface in a New York bodega, or those subway scenes from the last film. None of that here. But fans of the original will probably be mostly satisfied with this, as the film treats the series with a lot more reverence.
Okay, Ramblers, let's get rambling.
So, what did you guys think of this latest entry in the series? Is Scream 7 a return to the series' fundamentals, or a step back for this long-running franchise? Anton, I know you generally like the films, but I'm not sure you're as intense of a fan as Aaron. So, what did you think of Scream 7? Is this just another requel, or is there something different going on here?
I think that Scream 7 is still a pretty good movie. I think it's different in important ways from Scream 5 and 6, and in certain ways returns to Scream 4 quite a bit. I liked it. I don't love it. And I also think it feels a little bit slow at times. I'm not sure screenwriter Kevin Williamson is as strong a director as he is a writer. And I think that really impacts the first half of the movie. But I do think it has some good suspenseful set pieces, some enjoyable, if cliched within the franchise, reveals. So I enjoyed it. I don't know if I need Scream 8. I think maybe we should just call it quits after this one.
What about you, Aaron? I actually haven't had a chance to get your read on this.
Yeah, I mean, I have to put it right off the top that I had a pretty nightmarish screening experience of this movie.
That's
where
all I knew about it from your piece on the
seemingly
site.
everyone at the theater was losing their mind or just a complete jackass. So very weird experience. And despite that, like, I enjoyed watching it. I do think it's probably the worst film in the series. I don't know if it entirely works as a standalone, but it doesn't have the elements of 5 and 6 that I really like, with the like hyper reflexivity. And maybe I'm in a minority position here, but I think 5 is like easily one of the best in the series, and 6 is very good. And I think that the Melissa Barrera, Jenna Ortega, whatever the core 4 characters, and you get 2 of them here, the twins, but
Chad
without-
and Mindy, right?
Chad and Mindy.
yeah.
Yeah.
But with, I think the core 4 and having that kind of super smart alecky knowingness to how the beats of a horror movie work and then subverting them works really well in those two. And I think it works less well here. I like your comment, Andrew, that this movie is essentially like a really gory Scooby-Doo episode, because you know, the way that the
Very much so.
mystery resolves, it is the true Scooby-Doo textbook, where the character who fills you in on all the weird happenings and like apparently like, you know, reveals the lore that powers most of the movie, of course ends up being the bad guy. And then you just get a second random throw in to have like a couple do it, because none of these movies can ever just have one ghost face. The only
No, it's
movie
just
that
too
actually has
improbable.
one
It's actually a
ghost face is the third
logistical
one.
issue.
You're right.
Yeah.
It's very much like that, you know, the gardener, the housekeeper who welcomes the Scooby-Doo crew.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so like I enjoyed parts of that. I enjoyed Neve Campbell, Courtney Cox. I actually liked the AI element to the movie, with like, I liked having Matthew Lillard in there again, even though it's just like an AI thing, because he's just so entertaining.
Suffice to say, we'll be talking about the film. So if you haven't seen it yet and don't want spoilers, don't listen on.
Yeah. At this point, yeah. I mean, if you're cold, jumping in cold with us, we dig in. You should probably watch the movie. It's a deep dive. But I enjoyed the movie, but I don't know if I would give it like a thumbs up rating, because the other thing that actually really struck me with the movie is that I was kind of shocked by how quickly it progressed through the mystery aspect, and kind of, I was like, wait, we're in the final confrontation now. But it also did seem kind of slow and limp. Like the scenes weren't,
because there's only like
tense.
2 or 3 kill scenes,
like they just
before the final chase.
In my overall opinion, the movie never got that like coiled up tension that you get in Scream 6. Specifically, I think the two really standout scenes, like my favorite image in Scream 6 is him in the bodega with the shotgun. It's just so weird. Like it's a really like striking image. But the 2 scenes that like completely rattled my nerves so horribly is the subway car sequence where you don't know which is the ghost face, and the trying to get through the apartment on the like
the ladder between the windows.
And
it's great.
just
set piece.
And even the
But
opening,
those are good. See, those are
opening,
good. Those are good, like set pieces, and like conceptually, I think they also speak to. They're like a really more grounded and interesting way of doing some of the things that people like about, say, the Final Destination movies and stuff like that. Is that idea of set pieces without becoming ridiculous, right?
Like, I think in this movie, my favorite set piece is when they like lock down the house and then he comes out of the attic. Like that's my favorite sequence, because some of the other ones I just found either a little too like obvious. Like once you got the Lethal Weapon 2 enormous garage expansion or whatever that he's got, and I'm like, you're the chief of police. Why do you have like an infinite fun house of plastic? And I'm like, you just know something's gonna happen there. You need the nail gun so you can have Danny Glover killing the guy. So like that was just too obvious. But then the whole sequence at the bar, I was like, the twins they seem too smart from the last 2 to be in that situation, and so that kind of,
because they are literally the inheritance of like Randy, right? Like the character who like
that was their uncle.
No.
Anyways, so I'll let you go back to you guys, but like I just thought, even though it hits maybe the entertainment factor, and we have to note this is the most successful of the films theatrically, box office wise,
and that's like in less than a month out. Yeah,
it's made a lot of money, so there's guaranteed to have a Scream 8. And so, like, I guess good for Neve Campbell, but
Yeah.
and audiences are clearly connecting with it in a way that critics aren't, because this is easily the worst reviewed of the movies.
Yeah, it's true.
But it's
Which
just
I find
not-
surprising, but
it just doesn't hit in the way that maybe I'm just a really big fan of 5 and 6.
Would you like to play a game, Tara?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I would say that I think both you and Anders are much bigger fans of 5 and 6 than I am. I don't particularly love Sam and Tara as characters, and I'm kind of fine with them not being in this movie. I thought the twins were always more fun, and sort of having them tag along in this, at times I agree. They sort of seem a bit shoehorned in, like they don't necessarily fit the scene or even necessary to the storyline. But I'm trying to think of, like, what's this movie about? What's it trying to do? I think we could talk about, like, the direction. I totally agree that the movie, it's slow to build. It's too
Yeah.
slow to build, that it takes too long in the early scenes to kind of just have overly drawn out sort of dialogue between characters. And it lacks, and I'm quite surprised given that, Williamson is back writing the script, that it lacks early on much of the sort of sharp wit in the dialogue.
his voice, his writer's voice. Yeah.
Yeah, like it picks up. I think overall, just the movie continually like gets better as it goes along, and it becomes more fun. But I did feel like it took a while to get going. But I also
It
felt
feels
like
like-
there was vibes of, and they reference Jamie Lee Curtis's Halloween movies, and I had strong vibes early on of the first of the Halloween. What are we calling them? Requels? I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
But I agree a
because
little
of
bit.
its interest in focusing on Neve Campbell's character in a kind of almost like a semi-serious way for maybe half the movie. Just the way that's sort of exploring Jamie Lee Curtis sort of dealing with trauma at the start of Halloween. But then I think the movie's just better once it goes into the fun.
Yeah. The problem is that it wants to do that, but it never has the assuredness of like the direction and things to sell that. I think weirdly the whole movie to me, like come back to like well-crafted like action scenes and things like that, or set pieces. Like it opens with what could be a promising thing. The whole Mocker house has been turned into
Did
a
you like
museum
that
for
scene or
stab
not?
fans. I kind of liked it, but it's weird, right? Like it is very weird that anyone would actually, like, even in the world of like true crime podcasts and horror movies based on like pseudo realistic things, like I did not feel like that was a real thing that would ever happen. That house didn't feel fundamentally real to me. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't be shocked if it was like like when they're outside, it didn't feel like it was even like really in a place. It was just there to like set up this idea of like a museum and these super fans who then like kind of like have this ironic
Is this
death,
supposed to
you know?
be in Woodsboro?
Yeah, right.
Like
That's
they've
what I understood, because they
rebuilt the
reference
house?
it being
Yeah.
in California. Yeah,
Yeah,
like it's
okay.
very weird. It's very weird.
Aaron, did you
Right?
like that opening scene?
Not really. It felt a little. So, my biggest issue with the Scream series, which I probably think the Scream series is like maybe my favorite horror series, like overall, in that I think it probably has the strongest hit to miss ratio of like any long running horror series.
Mhm. I don't
Like, I
think
love-
any of them are absolutely unwatchable. None of
I
them.
don't
They're
think
all
even
watchable.
this
I
one. I
think
they're all
don't
very
think any of them
watchable.
are misses.
Yeah.
In my
No, they're all very watchable films
No, I think this one is.
that I
but
will
I
probably
just-
watch again.
I think this one is. Yeah, I need to watch it again at some point, so I don't have like just
Yeah.
gremlins behind me. But
So if anyone hasn't, you can check out Aaron's Substack and the piece he wrote about the experience. It's interesting.
We'll post it in the
I-
show notes.
I'm just confused as it's the whole why do you keep treating other people with such contempt in public, specifically in movie theaters? It's very strange to me. Doesn't bode well for future theatrical releases in a tenuous time anyway. That said, I find that the best. So why I think Kevin J. Williamson is more suited as a writer but not a director is that he doesn't create a inherent tension between the content and the audience that is watching the movie. And that's a thing that's extremely present with Wes Craven, who is probably, maybe of all the great horror directors, the most interested in horror movies as like something that are potentially evil. And that like the prurient desire to watch other people be murdered on screen is actually a
He's suspicious of it always.
voyeuristic. Yeah, it's a voyeuristic
It probably comes
extension
from
of the
he
killers
had
that
a
on the movie.
theological background, right?
Yeah, no, there's something there, and I think you get that. You really get that in Scream, and weirdly enough, you get it a lot in Scream 4. This idea of like the brutality of people who are just obsessed with violence, and so Scream 4 and this one are the ones that are most interested in the stab series of the or like the characters as what they mean within some kind of like in-world lore, while the other movies are more interested in commenting on other horror movies as opposed to just this one. So that's the thing that I like so much about the Radio Silence 2 films, is that they're so literate with horror movies that they're commenting on the larger movement of horror, like the, you know, David Gordon Green Halloween movies and the Ari Aster movies. And like, you know what I mean? Like you can tell that the Radio Silence guys have seen all these horror movies and they can work in all these really tiny, and also movies like Jurassic World and Star Wars Force Awakens, and they can kind of comment on a moment in Hollywood.
What's your favorite scary movie?
The Babadook. It's an amazing meditation on motherhood and grief.
Isn't that a little fancy pants?
Well, it's elevated horror.
What does that mean, elevated horror?
You know, it's like scary, but with complex emotional and thematic underpinnings. It's not just some schlocky cheeseball nonsense with wall-to-wall jump scares.
That sounds kind of boring to me.
This movie doesn't really comment on a moment in Hollywood. It actually does the whole Gen Z nostalgia play of like, hey, we gave you a new I know what you did last summer. And so we're giving you a new Scream that is just like, remember the 90s?
Based
you
on
weren't
another
there,
Kevin
but it's kind of
Williamson
fun.
film.
Yeah, no, but like, you remember the 90s? Let's just go back to that 90s filmmaking. Yeah. So I enjoy the 90s filmmaking stuff. It's just this movie doesn't have any of the like tension in its relationship to the violence on screen that the others do, that I find.
And the part of that is the whole movie is like a museum. It's too polished. It's like nothing it lacks some of the like livedness that some of the early Wes Craven especially 1 and 2 have, that feel like they could, the world exists in like in a real way, and characters could be inhabiting like a college comedy or another teen movie or things like that, and not you know, just sets for mayhem kind of thing.
Yeah, and I will say that I think my biggest reservation with this movie, aside from I just think it lacks some of the textual depth of the others, and Williamson is the weakest of the directors. Like just visually, he's the weakest. It's that I think Tatum is a pretty boring character. So there's just, I don't think the mother-daughter tension really pays off in the way that some of the self-doubt with the Sam character in 5 and 6 does pay off. In just a pure like dramatic motivational sense, I feel like Tatum is jerry-rigged to give Sidney Prescott some challenges, and then like, you know what I mean? She's kind of a character created to allow for dramatic tension within this family scenario, as opposed to somebody who's like motivated by her own
Sam
reasons.
is a character who is motivated for herself, for her own connection to the past and her feelings about her father.
Yeah, exactly.
So I always sort of found that in 5 and 6, the desire to add, like, to try to have some real emotional drama between like the sisters was kind of like misplaced. Like I didn't want it in Scream, because what I find about especially the first 3, like they're so wicked in their satire, they don't really care about anyone. Partly because I think, as you said, Aaron, that they're like they're so scornful of the audience for enjoying what they're watching, that the only person they ever hold in any regard is Sidney. And so I felt like Kevin Williamson here is sort of trying to be like, you know, so let's explore Sidney a little bit more. And again, I feel like we just don't need that in a Scream movie.
Yeah.
We don't really need like an exploration between her and her daughter and what, being a mother, being overly protective, and all this sort of stuff. It would be better if all that, you have it in a perfunctory way because a story needs something like this. But we don't need like to really dwell with it that much. And then instead give us a few more like juicy scenes mocking things.
More motivation than exploration, really.
I would say,
also-
Yeah.
Okay, well, I want to get into the themes after we do this. But
Yeah. The
Yeah.
only little comment here, just the question, like, don't you find the villains' motivation in this movie is essentially identical to the villains in 4? They're just like fans of the concept.
Yeah, well, they're fans, and then they're also like,
But there's no personal connection there. So
No.
it actually is like,
Which 4 does have.
I was pretty disappointed with the just like complete left field. Like I knew it wouldn't be, it's not going to be the boyfriend even because that's too obvious, as they say. in
And
the
they're really
movie
not
and things
gonna
like
take
that.
backs,
But it
too.
was just so like, okay, I guess that it's them.
Mhm.
Like
It honestly would have been actually less annoying to me if they actually did just bring back Stu, because having
exactly.
a long dead fake out is a horror movie thing. Like,
Yeah, I
and
agree.
they could, and if with enough of those little details, they could have made it semi-plausible that like he survived and was sent accidentally to this hospital.
Yeah,
and
well, if
lost
they
his
built in
memory and
sort of
stuff.
Billy Loomis,
Yep.
had this whole sort of life and child.
Exactly.
And we don't get ghost Billy Loomis in this. And
I know.
I love Skeet.
Yeah.
No, I don't
No,
want to harp
but
on
the-
the movie.
but the
Maybe we should
film-
move into the theme stuff.
So the film, we've had some mixed feelings about its treatment of thematics in terms of like the mother-daughter stuff. But what about some of like the meta themes and like the way this thing? What do you think of like, for instance, the use of AI? I think that's an interesting one.
Well, like, so I think this plays a role in it. The first thing I want to say is just picking up on something you observed earlier, Anders, that I think that this movie embodies a turn in Hollywood that I've noticed, say, in Jurassic World Rebirth or Reborn. I forget what it's called.
Rebirth.
Rebirth, the one from last summer, and how it differs from, so the way that Jurassic World Rebirth differs from the Jurassic World series, we're starting to see this trend to move away from this era of 2015, onwards. So say Jurassic World, The Force Awakens. Scream 6 and 5 were very, as Aaron said, very self-conscious about their engagement with this development in franchise Hollywood, where there was always this the desire to both have the old and the new. So you get a new cast, as we got in the Scream movies, plus we bring back a few oldies, and then thematically these movies were always obsessed with sort of a tension between the old and the new, and they also always embodied a very anxious meta dynamic where they both sort of recognize that they're corporate products that are trying to cash in on a franchise and on the legacy, while at the same time being that product. And they always sort of did this, there's this anxiousness to them. And I think there's some great scenes, right? Like skewering the requel in the franchise and in Mindy's speech in Scream 5 and stuff like that. This movie, I feel like it's like the dynamic between the old and the new is different. It's sort of entered in that like we'll repeat stuff, but we're not going to be as sort of like anxious about it. We're not going to be as meta about it, and we're also not going to be interested in necessarily introducing like a new generation in the same way. And so I see a similarity. I think it's sort of an emergent trend, but then it creates an interesting question of like, okay, so then how does the AI fit in? And in some ways, it's sort of interesting that the movie seems to be suggesting like by having, one of the Ghostface killers not be a returning old character, but just be an AI deepfake. I feel like it's kind of, there might be actually some satire there about like, is this the next phase of Hollywood where it's like, we're actually not going to bring back the old characters. We're just going to deepfake them.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So
I feel like there's a time.
There's especially interesting there, given that the reason that Neve Campbell didn't appear in number 6 was she wasn't happy with the amount of money that the studio offered her. She thought it was insulting.
Yep.
And she was like, come on, I've given you all this, like, give me something, right? And then the threat of AI potentially taking that away, from actors entirely, that possibility of being rewarded for their work tension there, I think.
And there's some strange things even with the casting, like with Courtney Cox and Neve Campbell, and they're both, they've had very different approaches to how they stay in the game. And the fact that Neve Campbell's, Sydney comments about, oh, I stepped away and now I'm coming back, like that's sort of built into the storyline. I feel like there's something going on there.
Yeah.
And even in the fact that you guys mentioned of this sort of like Gen Z nostalgia, I think it's a little bit on the nose, but I think the whole opening museum is very much like mocking that. Like,
well, it is.
How many
like
of you in the audience
those
are sort
kids
of like,
would
are
not
here
have been
and you
in-
would treat this as like the first Scream as a museum that you love rather than an actual movie that you ever watched in real life?
But it's the only way that they can approach
Yes.
it, because those characters would not have even been like conscious to,
Yes.
at best, aware. At best, they were babies when the original one came out.
You're right.
At
They
worst,
couldn't
they were born long after
Yeah.
the thing. So they only experienced secondhand through the museum and the films and things like that, right? And then you bring in the AI element with that, where it's like you can use AI to generate this sort of secondhand nostalgia ad infinitum. It's actually quite nihilistic. It's
No, it is.
horrifying.
No, there's definitely interesting themes at play there. I think the AI stuff plays with that. I think the opening does, even if it doesn't have a lot of tension as a horror scene. I think Anton, like you're right in that this film has a lot less of a anxious relationship to how it presents itself to an audience. And I actually do like that in general in Hollywood, movies that are continuing franchises are being more of just like, let's just be entertainment and stop being so worrying too much about whether the fans are going to like it or not. Like in terms of, is it pure? The purity test stuff.
Because that destroyed Star Wars. Honestly, the biggest mistake they made was being too self-conscious of either sort of subverting or pandering to the fans.
Yeah. They just got in their own heads about it.
Yeah.
But my issue with another element of that, though, is that the Scream series is by very nature extremely meta.
Yeah.
Like
Yes.
it literally
From the first
starts
one.
with, do you like scary movies? Like, and it's the idea of, we're just going to play the formula of scary movies and subvert it. So that these characters are all aware of what scary movies are and how the things work. And that is their weakness, because it means they can be exploited by the killers. And then the
And
audience is
likewise, the
exploited
killers
too.
are following their own love of these things too.
Yeah.
So you can explore that. That's why Wes Craven was a good choice for it, because the killers are themselves fans.
Yes.
Right?
And so that's the kind of thing where I think the movies where I want there to be a more overt meta commentary on the state of Hollywood at this moment are the Scream movies.
Yeah.
But I appreciate in general the trend towards a more generic simplicity.
But
Don't
if
you
we're going to take
feel like
the
this move-
fans, sorry, go ahead.
Well, just don't you feel like this movie could have used more of those scenes where the characters sit around and just talk about movies?
Yes. I was missing
Yes.
it.
Yeah. Like there's a
We get that
couple
one
moments
brief bit
where
in the middle,
Mindy
but-
touches on that, but not enough.
But I think this
No.
is part of the thing, is that like Tatum doesn't have any.
She's
She
not a-
doesn't
she's
bring
not
any
interested.
of
She
that.
doesn't, because her mother's not let her see any of these things.
Yeah.
That's actually what it is. It actually, her sort of naivete about the whole thing is because she's never been exposed. She's like the kid who doesn't know the horror movies, who's never seen a horror movie and resents their parent for not letting them.
Yeah,
see
and
it,
then
right?
then the weird, the new attempt at commentary is the creepy kid, right? Who's the neighbor's son, who's really into true crime, and he knows everything about true crime, and that is a type of fan that exists now. But again, Scream movies are not supposed to be
usually
about
a
true
young,
crime; they're supposed to be about horror movies.
Okay, what
It's
about
also
this?
not usually a young heterosexual boy like that.
Yeah.
Actually, most true crime fans are women, actually.
Yeah, no, that's true. What about also, well, because, like I think there's even something about like, so some of the main sets, right, are a museum.
Mhm.
And we've had elements of that in, like Anders, I was listening to, refreshing myself with some clips from the earlier podcast on Scream to remind myself what we had said. And you mentioned
They literally
also
make
that
the
there was
museum at the end of that.
yeah,
too,
sort of
the
a
villains one.
Scooby-Doo museum to the villain, to
Yeah.
go all 6 ghost faces, at the end of that one. This movie does something like two of its main locations are these houses, right? And one of them's a
Mm.
museum, so a sort of a fake recreation. And then the second one is a house that's, you know, ostensibly sort of this, you know, beautiful sort of colonial house, and it's like, but undergoing a renovation. And like, but the renovation
series.
is as Aaron says, is like the weakness, like that
The series itself is undergoing a renovation.
yeah,
Not
like
a- not a
there's I feel
remodel.
like I imagine he must have sort of been doing that
Yeah.
on purpose. And but also like that makes them vulnerable. Like
Mhm.
there's something about sort of Ghostface exploiting the fact that they're trying to remake the
Mhm.
house to kill them. They're like anyway.
Yeah.
And that's why
Maybe
I
I'm
think some of that
reaching,
stuff's the best part of the movie.
Well,
But,
I actually
like,
really
some-
I
I did
thought
not
the
like
best
some of the-
tension was the stabbing through the walls.
Yeah,
I like that scene.
reminded me of, like the Matrix. I kept wanting her,
Yes.
like Sydney to like smash
Out-
through like
Except I was waiting for
and,
Morpheus.
But the problem is some of the other ones I think are actually bad or like ill-conceived. Like I actually think the film gets too broad and unrealistic. Also with like the theater stuff and the like drama teacher and stuff like that. It's actually like so ridiculous. And then the kill
What
of
was
her,
that musical?
her friend
Why was there a
being
musical
like
with like a
the one
furry?
character.
And I
What's
don't
her name?
understand
McKenna
what-
Grace getting like sliced open.
Yeah, it was pretty nasty.
It's very
Again, the
nasty.
Scream movies are always like really cruel.
They're
to
pretty
the
violent,
characters.
yeah.
But it was like the musical
like,
was like
I
some
don't-
weird like children's like bedtime story
Yeah.
in high school.
Because the dog,
Was this
that
a
was the
real
part.
musical?
I actually Antoine, did I kind of laugh out
Yeah.
loud at like the
I think you and
dog?
I were we were the guys. We were
The Tatum is the dog, and
yeah, we're just laughing loudly.
Very
in the
funny.
theater. I feel like everyone else is like, "Why are you laughing?"
Yeah, full Max Caddy, like just.
Excuse me.
I actually think that a huge maybe part of my disappointment with the reveal, just to go back to that a little bit, is that those characters aren't present enough in the film.
No.
Because in all the other movies, at least one of the ghost faces is like there commenting constantly, and like they're a part of, because part of the Scream series is whodunits, and so they are always one of the individuals in the room when you get the like Poirot scene of like somebody in this room is this, and that I know it's like a generic expectation thing, but like that adds to tension, but it also allows more reflexive meta commentary because that character is playing a part and knows how to this, that, and the other. And I think it's maybe that the deep fake elements to this with live videos, with the ability to like hide in the house and break into all this like lockdown town and stuff.
Yep.
It seems to require actually a really high degree of expertise, but it's done by characters who both seem kind of like stupid cartoon characters when we meet them. I'm
Yes,
just like
actual Scooby-Doo characters.
I don't think these characters could do any of
the
these
creepy
things.
guy from the asylum.
And it's just like, wait, the goofy neighbor is like a genius at deepfakes? What? So I know
He worked at
that
Google, remember?
I know that all the Scream movies are they're not meant to be reality.
Yeah.
But it's just I think that's the thing that's like so good
I
about
agree,
the
this
first Scream
film-
movie is that Stu and Billy's like scheme, it's actually really simple. They just swap and then they enter like a place and then stab and then leave. Like
But I also find the fact that so that the neighbor character who you know we find out she did it.
yeah, she takes the wrong lesson from Sydney's book, right?
Yes, but
Yeah,
I also again there I
it's,
find
Anna Camp. Yeah.
I find it to be it's like a half complete good satire.
Yeah.
And I think if they had talked through it in a bit more of that sort of like let's talk movies, Sydney, like sort of way, it would have worked better because I think there's something there about like, you know, we've talked on this podcast multiple times about how everyone can only have the motivation of trauma in like movies. And
Yeah.
the fact that she's like, well, your trauma was what helped me overcome. And now I'm just going to duplicate
almost
it and
like
duplicate
mocking
it.
it, yeah.
And that's what I got to do. And like, there's something there again. I think like Williamson is like,
But if you're gonna do
he's
that,
but he
you
didn't.
kind of have to go full on into
Yeah.
like the satire and like a film like you guys haven't. I don't think either you've seen, but like Eddington, it doesn't
I haven't
directly do trauma, but it's like one of those things where it like takes something that like society takes as like acceptable and really pushes it into like crazy realms. So
No, I just think like there's
I think you have to
potential that
go
was sort of
further.
underdone, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that's why I don't think
Of all-
this movie's like an out and out failure. It's just I don't think entirely works because it's not. It just a little bit could push it over the line, and it'd be like, okay, this is like a pretty good movie.
What I have to say though is like my view
yeah.
in a lot of horror movies is like by act 3, like they've completely fallen into shambles. Even if sometimes there's like a brilliant, amazing like opening. Whereas I think why I'm still like I'm a soft positive on this. Like I enjoyed it. I might watch it again if my wife wants to watch it. It's that it's just like it doesn't fall apart the way that like so many horror movies I watch do. It's just it's fine. Like it never really exceeded my expectation, but
yeah, but modest like sort of attempt.
Yeah.
It's interesting of the new characters. The character I probably like the most in the movie is Joel McHale's Mark Evans, her husband.
Because a decent if you can't have Stewie, like they're sort of trying to have like a likable,
but he's
even a different approach.
And you know, he is a little different approach because he's actually much more competent than.
Oh yeah,
like, he's not perfect. He makes a couple of dumb mistakes, but in the end, like he's like his toughness and like ability to like hang in there like really saves the day, right? So if you talk about like compared to like the villains, he's like actually like much more competent. So him and Sydney actually seem like, which is kind of refreshing. They kind of seem like a decent like partnership. Like they're both pretty like tough and like can actually handle themselves.
Yeah, and that he's not a bad guy. He's not revealed as a killer. He does take an insane beat. Like he gets stabbed so many times.
Well, they even have to throw some lines into the dialogue. We're like, I can't believe this guy's still alive.
Survived. He's there for like 2 hours.
He's got a lot. Well, he's a tall man.
They wrapped him up tight.
So. I also think Joel McHale just kind of fits being in a Scream movie for his kind of snark and his, the meta community stuff. Like he just fits this world.
Totally.
You'd be hard pressed to figure out how to give enough motivation or storyline to like a Tatum movie that was like, because again, I think she might be the biggest gap in terms of characterization. Because even like the casting of like say the boyfriend, I thought he was really well cast, and that we just kind of assume, he's the kind of guy who looks like both really nice and really kind of evil at the same time.
Questionable at the same time.
Yeah, so you just assume he's like, this guy's probably up to something. But again, why does he have like all those deep fakes on his computer?
And it's not like they were planning. They're not necessarily planted there. He's like, I just want to see if I could do it.
It's a lesson. It's just a lesson in the movie, right? Like, don't use deep fakes. Don't do AI.
I do think there's a lot of places this series could go, like if they want to really break outside the box, because the obvious is that you do a movie that like who the killer is immediately and you follow them executing their plot, right? Like, and so you almost get like the reverse flip POV.
Well, they almost do that at the beginning of number 6 in New York.
Yeah.
Right. Which I liked.
I
like that. I think that had a really good opening sequence.
Yeah, or I think there's
Tony Rivellori. Yeah.
Yep.
If you could really
Zero
take
from,
an interesting,
Hotel.
A really strong sort of conceit, like elaborate premise, could really work if you were going to go for another. Like I think they've tapped now, like bringing back a character and trying to explore something about them. It's been tapped. We can't do it. You could do it like a digital world, kind of like Ghostface. So it's like there's things you could do if you really pushed it in a different way. A fully AI autonomous robot Ghostface.
Drone. Terminator.
Terminator.
Terminator Ghostface. Sounds awesome.
Now that we've wrapped up our discussion of the movie, why don't we briefly place number 7 into our ranking? Because I'm just curious, is this your lowest in your ranking or where?
Yes, it's I put it at number 7.
And what's your number 6?
4.
4? Okay.
That's exactly the same as me, honestly.
Okay.
Because 3 is just so much fun, and then I really like 5 and 6, and then 1 and 2 are the best by far.
Yeah, I go 1, 2, 5, 6, 3, 4, 7.
4.
Yeah. I probably go 1, 2, 3. And then I'm hard pressed to sort of like I feel like 4 and 7 and 5 and 6. There's aspects of, the 5 and the 6 I like better in terms of that sort of snarky movie dialogue, but I don't love the new characters, so I lean partly towards 4 and 7. So for me, this is probably, it's not the bottom one.
So did you like 5 though? Because 5 really kind of splits.
I
the
like
difference
them. I
between the
just
characters.
I don't love 5 and 6. Like, not that I love this movie. Like 4,
Yeah.
I don't love 4 either. I actually really like 3. Just for nonstop Creed on the soundtrack. It's just so early 2000s. It's great.
It is literally 2000, isn't it? Yeah.
Hello?
Hello, Sydney. Did you miss me?
Anything else that we've all seen that we want to say anything about?
Well, we've
I
all
think
seen Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie, right? Good
Yeah, it was fantastic.
corner.
Yeah.
Definitely, if you haven't had a chance, you should check that out.
It's amazing Toronto time and place, but I feel like the thing that I'm so shocked about is that people who are not from Toronto or might not have never been to Toronto actually seem to really like the movie, which goes to that whole classic point about great art. The specificity allows it to be universal.
Is universal, yeah.
But the humor in it is so specific to like a mind-boggling degree. Like the amount of Back to the Future
It is very
jokes.
much also is very much like, to me, a film for middle to elder millennials who might have or now that period that they travel back to is sort of their early adulthood, right? Or late
a golden age of
college,
Toronto.
like college days, right? So, which is always for a lot of people that really important formative phase. And so when they go back, some of the little touches are so good, and the greatest gag in that when how they realize that they are in, and then the song on the bus and the ads for all these different comedians and things. It's genius.
Yeah, it might be one of the most clever sort of extended sketch scenarios I've ever seen in a movie.
It doesn't feel like it's being spun on too long.
The fact that the movie, my understanding is it was first a web series.
Yep.
And then a proper show.
And then a TV show on Vice.
But so if someone told me it sounds like a web series premise. Yeah. But what's amazing is that the movie, even though it's so specific and it's so, it forms such a nice little circle within itself, partly through the time travel loops. But the fact that it works so well, even though, ostensibly it kind of should be who cares about any of this?
Yeah.
Why do I care about these two stupid guys trying to
It's very well written, actually.
Play that concert. And it's a repeated gag you'd have on some sort of sketch where it's just every time we just want to play at the Rivoli. But they turn it into something that actually has some poignancy, actually, bizarrely. Some great, actually sort of great storytelling in terms of how it loops back over, in terms of
so it's good
strong
writing, not just comedy writing, but structure of the story.
It's a strong time travel narrative. It's sort of mind-boggling.
And then the last thing I would say about it,
the movie,
I still don't have no idea how they did this. It's in terms of filmmaking, I think it's their combination of sort of guerrilla footage, obviously special effects and matching scenes with old footage and stuff like that is fantastic.
And the interaction with their past selves, I don't actually quite understand how they did it.
I know.
They must have
they can't obviously have de-aged themselves. That's not possible.
No, I think they're just
footage
scouring
from the old
their
show, I think.
Yeah, that's crazy.
They're scouring
really,
old
really
footage
well
just for the right moments.
Exactly.
But then also it's hilarious the way it plays with expectations about this being kind of a little bit like a Borat where, we sense we're interacting with a real human, and then all of a sudden and now it's a special effects, when he just tumbles off the CN Tower and you're oh my God, he just his body's falling. It looks so funny because up until that moment, it's actually them up there and they're goofing around. You're what are they gonna do?
They shopping at Canadian Tire.
Yeah, the guy talking, it's so good. And some of the stuff, again, I don't know how they did everything in it, but some of the behind the scenes of the fact that the whole climax sequence when he's trying to get the electrical charge into the bus on Queen and Spadina, the corner, was happening the night of the Taylor Swift concert in Toronto, and they were filming guerrilla style on the streets.
That's
That's why all the cops were downtown so that they could get away with it because there were fewer cops right there. But the other is the sequence where it's like Jay's mansion, the shooting, which is that gag is just insane
that gag is so
to
good.
me.
It's
I was
insane.
like dying that the fact that like, hey, you guys know I have this. Like the fact that he just blows a guy's head off is just so insane. But when they're running away and there's news footage, that was real news footage at Drake's mansion in which they actually snuck up because they were talking about the Kendrick Lamar feud, the news.
Yeah. And the guy who got
snuck
shot
into the
outside.
background. Yeah, and they snuck up into the mansion and got in. So if you go and find real
That's Drake's
news footage, Jay and Matt are in the background.
That's fine.
Of the Drake reporting.
Yes.
When the guy got
running
shot.
running away.
To be clear to people, when a person actually got shot.
Yeah. It's crazy. But this is just Matt Johnson. I think it's like he's kind of a guerrilla genius in terms of filmmaking. And I also do love the fact that once when I was shooting something like a short, like a web series episode, he literally just walked by and stopped and like watched his film for like 5 minutes and then continued on his way in the park. Because he
that is cool.
Yeah, he's a Toronto guy.
Was this the Day in the Park or whatever one?
Yeah, Walk in the Park.
Walk in the Park. Yeah, very good.
I think that this movie, so Matt Johnson clearly, like has to establish him as sort of, major talent for Canadian cinema. Between this and like Blackberry, because I also think I think of Blackberry as one of the better Canadian works of the past decade. Also because it's telling an important, in a humorous way, an important like story about Canada, like the rise and fall of sort of Blackberry. But then this movie also has, like, I think it has a lot of potential to be sort of a Canadian classic.
Yeah.
And I think because it also taps into, there's kind of like there's a bit of a tradition of sort of like Canadian comedies about sort of like kind of like losers who can't like, they don't know what they're gonna do in their life.
And I'm thinking
Well, I'm thinking of like Going Down the Road even. When the original sort of classic of Toronto cinema, but these two new people from the East Coast coming out to Toronto and trying to make it big, and like it's so sort of focused on their low stakes of their world. And it's a very different style movie, but there's something about this sort of like the little goals of these like guys within their sort of bubble that reminded me of it, and the fact that this is going to be another quintessential Toronto movie. Then even the sort of like Bob and Doug McKenzie just sort of like sitting around like never really doing anything.
With the sort of almost like goofy-ish sci-fi pretensions and stuff too. Some of that stuff, like the outrageous schemes.
Yep.
And it's also been very like when I went, it was like packed, like with the Anton, right? Like I think it was a mostly full theater. So
I think it
obviously
seems like it has good
it's
word
finding
of
an
mouth.
audience, especially among it seems like college kids and even high schoolers.
Yep.
Plan. This is going to be the last plan you and I ever have to do. And as far as I'm concerned, Nirvana the band is playing the Rivoli tonight.
Cool. And other things that I know we've talked about were the Netflix film House of Dynamite from Catherine Bigelow, but you should check out our newsletter from last week if you want to hear more about our thoughts on that, because we feature Aaron's review and offer some extra thoughts about it in that Substack newsletter. So yeah, people should definitely sign up for that. Other than that, we will catch you next month. Thanks for listening to Three Brothers Filmcast.
Goodbye, Mr. Bond. I bid you farewell.